So, the time has finally come. 10 years of FNAF and I can't believe how fast this time passed. It feels like just yesterday I was a 12-year-old watching Markiplier and PewDiePie play this game and getting absolutely scared. Now that I think back, I get kinda emotional. It never really hit me how much this game means to me until I saw the movie in theaters and I saw how equally hyped everyone else was about this movie. So many people came in cosplay and it was really sweet. Now, before I get too sappy, let's get into the speed paint. For this special anniversary, I wanted to go big and draw my favorite animatronics from the games. So I first looked at all of them and quickly realized how many there are. I always knew that there were a lot, but damn, it was really hard to pick only a handful. In the end, I decided on Mangle, the Puppet, Lolbit, Chica, and Ballora. Springtrap was also close to making it, but this guy is just so complicated to draw and I struggle with drawing the animatronics in general. At the moment I'm still trying to figure out where everything will go, so it just looks a little funky. You're just gonna have to trust the process here. Luckily I was happy with this layout on the first try, so I was able to start with the sketch. I wanted to have the animatronics in the front while the puppet is in the back as part of the background. Mangle was the hardest to figure out because she has so many details. And I know Mangle's gender has never been revealed, but in my head I always saw her as a girl, so consider that my headcanon, I guess. After Mangle I worked on Lolbit, which didn't take me too long, since I just have him kinda peek into the picture. He's a silly character after all, so that seemed fitting. Next was Chica, and she really gave me a hard time. I've drawn FNAF characters before, and I always run into the same problem, which is trying to make them look symmetrical. I always seem to mess that part up somehow, and it usually takes me many tries until I can move on. Her beak was also a big problem for me, but eventually I kinda got it. When deciding on my favorite characters, she actually came to mind first because I consider her the scariest out of the original roster. After that it was time for Ballora. She's always been one of my favorites as well, because I just think there's something extra creepy about her. The way she crawls on all fours just creeps me out even to this day. Sadly we can't see her do this in the games, but Scott said that this is the way she moves when she isn't dancing. Also the fact that she always has her eyes closed makes her kinda mysterious, and I like that. With most animatronics, the scariness factor has gone away for me over the years because I've been exposed to them so many times. After a while, the jump scares just kinda lose their punch for me. But she's different in that way, and I think that makes her underrated in my opinion. Maybe it's the fact that she looks so human that makes her so scary? Like an uncanny valley sort of thing. She was also the character after Mangle with the most details. Lastly, I just sketched the puppet for the background. That didn't take me too long, since she isn't very complicated. And with that I had my sketch done and I was able to focus on doing the line art. And I'm not gonna lie, I was not excited to do this because I knew that this would take me forever, but you gotta do what you gotta do. There isn't much to say about the line art process since it's pretty straight to the point, so I thought this would be the perfect time to ask you about your favorite FNAF memory. Please leave that in the comments and subscribe if you want to stay up to date with my art journey. For me, one of the highlights was when I went to the cinema with my friends to see the movie when it came out. I even ran into an entirely different friend group after the movie. Turns out they were seeing it at the same time, which was kinda funny. Before going, I even did a makeup look inspired by the puppet that looked kinda like this. I used this image for reference. I was a bit worried that I might be the only one showing up like this, but the FNAF fanbase never fails to impress and a lot of people came in cool creative outfits. By the time I saw everyone, I actually was worried I wasn't dressed up enough. After all, there were people in full cosplay, and here I was in my silly makeup. When I went to leave the house, my mom actually saw me and went, "Wait, you're not actually leaving the house like this, are you?" And I had to tell her yes, I was. She thought I was pranking her up until I actually left the house. Of course she wanted to know why I was going out to see a movie like this, and I had a hard time explaining that to her. And in that moment I realized I was going to have to explain FNAF to her, which was very awkward. I wonder what was going through her mind after I left. Luckily she's very supportive of my nerdy hobbies, even though she doesn't get it, which is great, but I was really able to see the confusion in her eyes at that time. Poor woman. I made everything green in the background to see if I have everything colored correctly, so don't worry about that for now. Then I did the base colors and I wasn't sure about what colors to choose since I need them to look old and abandoned. You can see that I changed the base colors a bunch of times during this process. I also wasn't able to select certain parts, so I was forced to color them in manually. And here's when I got annoyed by the green background and started to work on the actual background. Pretty much from the start, I knew that I wanted to have the checkered floor pattern as a background and the puppet in front. This didn't take me too long, but I had to figure out how to make the background more moody and dark. Everything simply looked too new for it to be scary. Making everything darker and adding a bit of dirt with the new brush set helped me a lot, and I was able to move on to the puppet's base. And as soon as I finished the base, it suddenly hit me. Up until this point, I didn't put any thought into how I was going to shade everything, and I just knew that this part was going to take a long time. I started with Mangle and kinda just went part by part, trying to figure out how I was going to do this. However, quickly I returned to the puppet because I simply wanted this background to be finished so I didn't have to worry about it anymore. Then it was back to Mangle and experimenting with the shading. Luckily, by this time I had figured out how I was going to go about this shading process and moved on to Ballora. Somehow she was even harder than Mangle to shade, and I had to try a few times before being somewhat happy with the outcome. Chica was easier, maybe because I've drawn her before and the others were really new to me. Who knows? At this point I also noticed that the animatronics looked way too clean and new, so I had to change that. That's why I went back and added some dirt and texture to them. I think that helped a bit. By this time I was ready to shade Lolbit, which didn't take me too long. After all, you can only see a small part of him. Looking back, I wish I made his eyes glow, but whatever. I'm sure this isn't the last time I will be drawing these guys anyway. The puppet needed some texture too, and lastly came the highlights on everyone, which I almost forgot about. There are just certain steps I tend to forget about, and I only realize I've forgotten when it's way too late and I've posted the drawing on every platform. Of course I had to put my watermark on there, and then I was done. Here's the finished drawing. What do you think? I hope you liked my speed paint and hearing me talk about my favorite FNAF memory, even if it was a bit embarrassing. See you in the next video and take care!